Okay, let's dive right into this. How much meaning can you really pack into a single, incomplete sentence? Well, it turns out a tiny fragment of language can sometimes hold an entire universe of stories. Today, we're going to put on our detective hats and try to solve the mystery of just 6 simple words. So the source material we're looking at today, it isn't some long, complicated article or a huge data set. Nope, it's this. A short, incomplete phrase that feels way more like a clue than a statement. It's a genuine linguistic mystery, and we're going to try and figure out what on earth it could possibly mean. And here it is. In the original German, it reads, Wenn einer, wegen einer, alles überflutet. Now, if you just translate that word for word into English, you get something like, when one because of one, everything floods. Yeah, I know. It sounds pretty strange, right? Almost like nonsense. But trust me, there's some real magic hidden inside that grammar. Which, of course, brings us to the main event here. What could this possibly mean? It's a total puzzle. And like any good puzzle, to solve it, we've got to look closer, break it down, and examine every single piece of evidence. So let's get this investigation started. Okay, so it's time to perform a little linguistic surgery here. To get the whole picture, we first have to deconstruct this clue and figure out what each individual word is doing. This is where things start to get really interesting. So the basic structure breaks down into 4 main parts. First up, you've got the condition, wenn, which just means when or if. Then we have the agent, einer, meaning one or someone. Third, the cause, wegen einer, which means because of one. And finally, you get this really dramatic consequence. Alles überflutet. Everything floods. Seems simple enough. But the real mystery? It's all hiding in those 2 middle words. And this right here, this is the absolute heart of the puzzle, the ambiguous one. See, the word einer shows up twice, but here's the trick. It doesn't actually mean the same thing each time. This one little detail is the key that's going to unlock the whole thing. It all comes down to a little bit of German grammar. So that first einer is what's called the nominative case. Just think of it as the subject, the one doing the action. It probably means someone, or more specifically, a masculine one. But the second einer is different. It comes right after the word wegen, which forces it into another grammatical role, the dative case. And in this situation, it's the feminine form. So it refers to the cause, meaning because of a female one. Isn't that wild? Same word, 2 completely different jobs. This deliberate inexactness, well, it has a name, ambiguity. And in this case, it's not a flaw in the language. No way. It's actually the source of the fragment's power. It's like a blank space that our imagination is just invited to fill. The sentence isn't telling us just one story. It's giving us the building blocks to create a whole bunch of them. All right, so now that we've taken it apart piece by piece, let's start reconstructing the scene. What kind of stories could actually pop out of this little grammatical puzzle? What we have is a single cause leading to an absolute catastrophe. Let's explore that escalation. Let's start with the cause. Just think about it. The source of all this chaos is singular. Just one. It could be one person, one little action, one single mistake, one event. It's this tiny focal point that has these massive, massive consequences. And the results of that one singular cause? Well, as you can see here, it's not some things. It's not even a few things. It's alles, everything. The scale of the consequence is just total and completely overwhelming. From that one tiny action, everything is affected. And that stark contrast is exactly what makes this phrase so dramatic and so powerful. So, let's put on our screenwriter hats for a minute. What kind of stories can we build from this? Okay, first, imagine a human drama. When one man, because of one woman, floods everything. Maybe it's a story about betrayal, right? Where one destructive act just ruins families, careers, everything. Or maybe it's a story of obsession, where his fixation on her causes him to just let his whole life fall apart until it all comes crashing down. The flood here, it isn't water, it's chaos and sorrow. Now let's switch genres. How about a disaster story? When one river, because of one storm, floods everything. Now we're talking literally. You can almost picture it, a quiet valley, a river that's been the lifeblood of a town for generations. Then comes the one storm, this singular catastrophic event that turns their protector into their destroyer. Everything is just washed away. Or, what about a workplace thriller? When one worker, because of one mistake, floods everything. Picture a technician at a massive dam, a single moment of destruction, one wrong lever, and the consequence is total,
A whole valley submerged because of one tiny fleeting error. See? 3 completely different worlds, all born from the very same 6 words.
So, what this really all comes down to is the power of the fragment itself. The case is basically meant to stay unsolved because there is no single right answer. The whole point isn't to find the correct interpretation, but to appreciate that its incompleteness is exactly what makes it so rich and fascinating.
And this, really, is the core takeaway. A single sentence, even just a fragment, can truly hold a universe of stories. The real meaning isn't just in the words printed on the page, but in the narratives that we, the ones reading it, build from those clues. It's an active, totally creative process.
So I'll just leave you with this thought. We all have these fragments in our lives. Overheard phrases, lines from a book we read years ago, pieces of advice that just stick with us. They might be incomplete, they might be ambiguous, but we build our own meaning around them. So what fragment defines your story?